Hello. Welcome to Hugh's Reviews, the place for movie views and spoiler clues. You know, I thought I could put this off a bit longer, but the universe had other plans. Eventually, every reviewer has to talk about M. Night Shyamalan. No! Okay, calm down. I can do this. Just breathe. Let's talk about Glass. Believe it or not, there was a time when M. Night Shyamalan was Hollywood's golden boy. There was even talk of him being the next Spielberg. Yeah, I'll wait for your laughter to subside. I have a lot of ideas, he said. And then he made more movies. And the praise grew silent. The silence turned to horror. The horror turned to laughter. His supporters became detractors, and yet M. Night soldiered on, confident in his brilliance, offering up what was in his mind, masterpiece after masterpiece, while the rest of us saw a descent into mediocrity and then soon into shameful garbage. And Glass ain't gonna change that. I don't like to be too hard on someone who obviously pours so much effort into his craft, but can we be done with Shyamalan now? Can we just admit that even if his movies return a profit, he should just stop? I get it. He's working with Blumhouse Productions now, and when he's given a budget, he can somehow, perhaps out of mere morbid curiosity, return a 3- or 5-fold profit on the investment. But surely that isn't worth it to become the cinematic world's whipping boy. I don't know. No one has ever offered me unholy amounts of money to delude myself into selling out my dearest artistic endeavor. But if that day ever comes, heck yeah, I'll sell him the rights. Daddy got bills. But to do it over and over and over again while claiming your genius is merely misunderstood or the critics are out to get you, smacks of delusion. At some point you have to admit it's not the critics, it's you. You got your millions. Fade out. Take your time to craft something truly remarkable with all that passion instead of whatever it is you're doing now. We've seen it time and time again with so many artists, and I know many are not appreciated until after their time. Van Gogh and Picasso were broke losers at the end. John Carpenter became a parody of himself. Ridley Scott I don't even know what he thinks he's doing anymore, and frankly, neither does he. I could mention numerous names in the cinematic and musical worlds who destroyed their own legacy, but I won't, because I respect and love them too much. And their estates would sue me blind. And that brings me back to M. Night Shyamalan. One of my favorite Shyamalan movies is Unbreakable. It's slow and tense. The lead is appropriately used in that Bruce Willis seems depressed and mumbly the whole time, which is his MO in nearly any movie he's in anymore, but for that movie, it was perfect. His character was a man without purpose, struggling against mundanity. Samuel L. Jackson as Elijah Price, by comparison, was all intensity and drive, seeing beyond the pale shadow of the life around him, knowing what his purpose was. He was nothing but purpose. When the two came together, it was electric. What would happen next? Is Willis's done a hero, or is he a fluke? The questions left us gasping for more, and the end of that movie was nearly perfect. Shyamalan had apparently written another script around that time, dealing with the same questions, and more, but in a different genre. After a slew of embarrassing critical failures, he released that movie in the form of Split, a horror suspense story starring James McAvoy giving a truly Oscar-worthy performance about a serial killer whose multiple personalities granted him near superhuman abilities. Split was well received, and then M. Night gave us one of his signature twists. The two movies took place in the same universe. They were part of a trilogy. The finale was to be called Glass. Jackson's Mr. Glass, Willis's Protector, and McAvoy's Horde were all to face off in a battle royale. Who would win? Would Mr. Glass be able to bring his villain and hero together, proving himself the master of machinations, or would it all fall apart as they were captured and convinced they suffered from delusions of grandeur? Were their powers illusion, or were they all that they believed themselves to be? It sounded fascinating, and the trailers looked great. Count me in, I'ma go see this sucker. And then I saw that sucker. And then I felt like a sucker. If you want to imagine what it was like, take a gold bar in your hands, give it to a child prodigy, and then bury them both in steaming sewage. There's something of worth in there, but you're going to have to try real hard to dig it out and clean it up. Shyamalan directs this movie like a film student who has read about cool camera techniques, but doesn't know why they work. There are neat shots here and there, I can see what he was going for visually, but the incompetent editing, storytelling, and writing blast them from your mind, and all you're left with is an angry and confused laughter. Don't get too attached to what you think you know from the other two movies. Forget every bit of goodwill he built in the previous two films. He flushes all of that right down the toilet. The biggest problem with Glass, as in nearly all of Shyamalan's movies, is the writing. M. Night spends so much time trying to impress the audience with his cleverness, he forgets what a basic script structure should look like. In spite of his delusions to the contrary, he is not Hitchcock. Hitchcock would take simple ideas and explore them in new ways. Mental illness, voyeurism, a fear of heights, even something as laughably weird as a flock of birds became in his able hands treasures of the silver screen. Shyamalan, on the other hand, starts with the barest hint of a simple idea, drowns it in high-minded self-importance, and forgets the seed that was planted in the first place, leaving it to wither and die. Here we have the three main characters being confronted with a harsh idea. They are not super, they are merely mentally ill. Elijah is just kinda smart. Dunn is just kinda strong. And McAvoy's horde is just a bodybuilder with too many voices in his head. An interesting concept that could have been made for an intense psychological thriller. So what went wrong? First of all, think back to Unbreakable. Willis's Dunn finds his weakness is water. Specifically, he is a poor swimmer and is susceptible to drowning. That wasn't good enough for Shyamalan, so now Dunn is rendered weak as a kitten if he so much as touches water. Does he not drink water? Does the man never bathe? Oops, I got in the shower and I can't get up. It must stink under that raincoat of his. At one point, a completely ordinary man holds Dunn's face in a puddle and he is incapable of defending himself. Dude, do a push-up and punch him! It's 2 inches deep and your hands are free! I haven't seen a super weakness this stupid since Green Lantern was susceptible to the color yellow and wood. Buffy the Vampire Slayer in a canary coverall could have kicked his butt, and this is worse. And even that is inconsistent, because a second before that he is submerged in a water tank and uses his superhuman strength to punch out the side of said tank. So which is it? Then we have the Horde. McAvoy is amazing in this part, and his accolades are well earned. There are some actors who can't do one accent correctly, and he does at least 4 that I recall, with included independent mannerisms and body language for each of the personalities he switches into, and he does many of them in the same scene, flipping between them like he's channel surfing. The hard work that went into his character shifts must have been astounding. Never mind his actual physical transformation from the weak-limbed fellow he was as Mr. Tumnus in Chronicles of Narnia to the swole monster he is here. Dedication and talent, thy name is McAvoy. But all that hard work is wasted on this script. Apparently it is belief that activates superpowers, not your genetic makeup, because the second the Horde doubts itself, it becomes baby soft and easily bested. And then there's Glass himself, the man who killed hundreds of men, women, and children to find just one superhero. And spoiler warning! 3, 2, 1. Okay? This movie makes Glass the hero. That's right, folks, by the end of this movie, Elijah Price, Mr. Glass, mass-murdering psychopath, is not only proven right, his moment of triumph is supposed to be the feel-good point of the entire trilogy. Mr. Glass is the good guy. Imagine if someone made a movie about 9/11 and at the end of that film, the big twist was that the terrorists were right, the deaths and destruction were totally justified, and we're supposed to cheer for those monstrous scumbags. That is the final message of the Unbreakable cinematic universe. Disgusting and insulting doesn't even begin to cover it. Oh, but according to the movie, it's okay, because there's an evil secret organization suppressing the knowledge of superhumans. Somehow, they've been doing this for 10,000 years. You know, in a modern world where a guy eating Pocky becomes a YouTube craze, I can't imagine there isn't at least one guy out there throwing cars like confetti asking for donations on Patreon. So, how do they manage this worldwide suppression? And the organization itself is staffed by absolute morons who, in spite of the worldwide influence, money, and power that they hold, choose to meet in a public restaurant in the middle of the day and can only begin their secret meeting of evil after the non-members have left. What, so you sit there for 10 hours poking your cold entrees, waiting for every civilian to leave at the same time, and no new ones wander in, so you can lock the doors and blah-ha-ha your schemes to each other? And it's hinted at that they own the entire high-rise the restaurant is in. Hey guys, take the secret evil meeting of evil to the next floor. We gotta serve the soup. I imagine some guy they forgot about wandering out of the bathroom in the middle of their diabolical monologues and going, what? Unbreakable was groundbreaking. It was a superhero movie without being a superhero movie. And it came out before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man revitalized the entire industry. It was a cult classic that took risks in all the right ways. Split received sporadic praise, but it wasn't about superheroes. It was a tense psychological thriller that pulled through due to brilliant acting on the part of its lead. Glass is the equivalent of an underdog team making its way to the Super Bowl only to show up drunk and spend 2 hours smashing their heads against the goalposts. Which is kinda how I felt after watching it. I get what he was going for in that narcissistic, he thinks he's too clever for us kind of way. We tell him he's delusional. He believes he's not. And the bad guy here being vindicated is supposed to be him. But M. Night, Bubby, you're not going to be vindicated by history. You're going to be crushed by it. Please, for your sake and ours, stop. Don't bother with this one unless you're feeling completionist or RiffTrax comes out with a commentary and you need a good laugh. Once again, Shyamalan leaves us wanting more. Just not more of this. And that is it tonight for Hugh's Reviews. As always, I'd like to thank our underwriters at Moons of Vega Photography and to Bear and Moogie. You guys are the best of the best. Happy viewing! Oh no, a glass of water!